And the next thing we've got is bonus features. Starting out with the total electron content forecast. This will show you where GPS errors are most likely. Around the equator at noon is not a good place to use a GPS. People that live in those areas are aware that their GPS works much better at nighttime. We are seeing a little bit of chaos here, although mostly orderly electron belts. We'll let it play through a second time here. When your GPS satellite has to communicate with a lot of free electrons in order to reach your GPS handset, massive errors can occur, and this will show you where they're most likely to occur. And here's a diagram of Earth's Van Allen belts. Distances are shown in miles. Your GPS satellite is at like 12,500 miles of altitude in its very high, very circular geosynchronous orbit. We see some charging hazards here, some internal charging by the higher energy electrons here, which can get all the way into the circuitry of satellites. So that's over the southern Indian Ocean, and some surface charging, the less high energy electrons charging up the surfaces of satellites over the central Pacific. They're only in yellow, not in red charging levels. Here's the one-year chart of the relativistic electrons reported by Solon.info, and here's the 3-day chart. We made it over 10 times warning levels yesterday, late in the day. And for you new viewers, the N's and M's are the noon and midnight local time for the GOES 16 and 17. We've recently gone back into warning territory. And let's continue on. Here's the forecast model. NOAA expecting flat levels of electron flux here over the next about 3 days. And we may see a dip there when a coronal mass ejection strikes late on the 16th, early on the 17th. We talked about it in our previous videos. Make sure you check those out if you haven't. Next, we're going to look at the ionosphere layer. The F layer is located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here is the F layer. So this will show you 1 day of data in vibrational frequency. Millions of vibrations per second is what a megahertz is. 1 megahertz is 1 million vibrations per second. And happy Valentine's Day. Next, the anomalygram, showing anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. Oh, some wild shifts happening there over South America. Check it out. We're seeing some sudden shifts from high to low, back to high, back to low frequency anomalies there. So some serious and sudden swings in the ionosphere. Let's bring up the latest images. There's 1230 universal time ionogram. There's 1230 universal time anomalygram, looking a little more normal at that moment. Again, big swings happening all around this area. Continuing on, to welcome you to the Neo-Renaissance. If you haven't seen our website, smashamash.com. You can find links to our merch there, as well as to the Smash Team, which is the subscription services site with which we've replaced Patreon. We needed superior capabilities, and now we've got them. There's the login screen at smashamash.com/smashteam. Thanks to our gold and silver subscribers. You can find a link to our merch below the video. We've put it in order of best selling. And these two at the bottom, those have never been offered before. We just recently opened those up. Shout out to Keebs and Al, Henry and Al, otherwise known as Mr. Keebler. Make sure you subscribe to their channel. They were the instrumental portion of the Smashes of Hazard theme song. Anyway, there's the merch, sorted in order of best selling. Make sure you join us on Twitter as well. If you haven't signed up for Twitter, set up an account on Twitter. Twitter.com/smashamash is where we're located. We've gained some followers there. Cheers to everybody who's signed up. And there's a little teaser for smashamash.com/smashteam. Let's get back to ground-based solar observatories to close out bonus features. So here's the latest data from the ground-based solar observatory at El Teide, Spain. And there are a lot of filaments on the Earth-facing side of the sun. Filaments down here, filaments, filaments, filaments. More filaments. Check out this filament. There's some filaments, and don't forget some filaments up in the northeast. Ton of filaments. Those could eject at any moment. Essentially, remember folks, we don't need to see a coronal mass ejection to see. We don't need to see a solar flare to see a coronal mass ejection. We've covered it repeatedly on the channel. We've got another active region rising in the northeast. Here's a close-up of sunspot 2141 and this other sunspot group that's to its south. Once again, sunspots at different latitudes. That group has degraded since yesterday. It still is barely beta class. This is a new one that's spontaneously grown in the past few hours, and it's been growing since we did the show. And this active region rising up here, not a sunspot yet. So here are the magnetic fields. There you can see that active region rising. There's that new group. There's that degrading group. And there's the most interesting group, sunspot 2941. Don't be surprised to see it produce a major flare as it sets, or even after it sets. So here's a great widescreen view, a wide field view rather, from the GOES 16 SUVI. That's 304 angstroms ionized helium. Pretty calm at the moment. Is it the calm before the storm? Make sure you watch our previous videos to see what we were talking about when it comes to CMEs, because on the 12th, this activity right here, and I had to refresh that. Anyway, this activity right here, folks, produced some Earth-directed CMEs as far as I'm concerned. I'm expecting to see those arrive late in the day on the 16th, early in the day on the 17th. So that's the view in 94 angstroms over the past few days. Again, don't be surprised to see sunspot 2941 rather. Don't be surprised to see this produce some M or even an X-class flare around when it sets, including after it's out of sight. Sunspots lose their name regularly and produce major flares. The likelihood of them producing large flares on the limb is actually a little higher. And let us know in the comments if you're a metalhead. Who's your favorite metalhead? Did you check out our poll? Check out our community posts. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather, and may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.